Hello and welcome back to another episode of Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls on Nyxus Gaming. We are here for a lovely little Nyxus guide today, and I am here in the town of Crucible, also known as the bottom half of New Sheogorath, home of the mad god Sheogorath. Now, while you're here, you may come across a little building known as the Museum of Oddities, and that's going to be the focus of our episode today, so why don't we head on inside and see what it has going for it.
Is this your first time to the museum? Perhaps you would care for a tour. I am the curator of the Museum of Oddities, Una Armina. Have we met? You look familiar. Anyway, I'm always looking for new exhibits, so remember me when you come across anything odd.
And she gives you this quest here for the Museum of Oddities. We'll get into that in a minute, but let's take a tour of the place, shall we?
Would you like a tour of the museum? Wonderful. Follow me and I'll show you around my little collection of oddities. Look closely and you'll see a tiny skull. These pygmies used to live in the Shivering Isles until they were all eaten by grummites, poor dears. Here's a real oddity for you, an arm of one of the gatekeepers. This one was killed by... oh, I forget now. A lovely specimen in any case. Up here is a little beauty. The Ring of Desiccation. Walk on water and breathe underwater at the same time. Odd, if you think about it for a minute. I hope you're enjoying the museum. Look closely.
And that's pretty much it for everything she has in the museum at the moment. As you can see, there are a bunch of empty shelves all around, and that's what the focus of this quest is. This is the Museum of Oddities, and if I find anything odd, I should bring it to her. As you can see, there are no quest markers for any of this stuff, and I think there's 12 things total for us to find. I wanted to do a guide on this because it is probably the first quest that really tripped me up in this DLC, where I just had no idea at all where to go. So it's always lovely to get a little bit of help on these things, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So without ado, let's start finding these items. Before we get started, it is worth noting that you can get multiples of a lot of these items, and you will only be paid for bringing the first one to the museum. But five of them in particular have fixed location spawns, but they might have multiple. I think there's only one of them on the entire list that you can only get in one spot in the entire DLC. But 5 of them have fixed locations. The other 7 will randomly appear in containers, and we'll get more into those later. We're going to start with the fixed location items. The first item we're going to be getting on the list is the Blind Watcher's Eye. It is a variant of the regular Watcher's Eye plant mushroom thing that you find growing all throughout the caves of the DLC. Now, this one in particular that I found is in Milkar here, which you visit towards the end of the main quest line. This is the Nyxus zone, which is literally the first area you walk into when you enter the dungeon. If I can find the exit, yeah, there's the exit. You walk down this hall, and it's right around the corner here. You can also find a Blind Watcher's Eye in the Knotbone Chamber or the Naughty Bramble. I have no idea where those dungeons are, but if you come across them in your journeys, just remember you can find a Blind Watcher's Eye in them. The problem being, though, is it doesn't show up as a blind one, so you're just going to have to go picking randomly. So you might want to try and find Milkar here. Like I said, you can come here anytime. You will come here towards the end of the main quest line, and it is just inside. You find a Blind Watcher's Eye, and it might be something Una Armina would want for the Museum of Oddities. And you can see when you pick it up in the top left, it does now list as a blind one. Next up, we have the Deformed Swamp Tentacles, and luckily these are actually labeled as what they are. I found this one just to the west of the door to Cyrodiil, but it is outside of the fringe wall, so you will have to work your way all the way around here from the Gates of Madness. I found a couple that were a little closer to the Gates of Madness right over here, but they were too high up even for my character to jump and grab, so I decided to get this one instead. If you're ever near the location's Pinnacle Rock or the Lost Time Camp, apparently you can find them around there as well, but I figured this would probably be the easiest one to grab with its vicinity to the beginning area of the DLC. Din's Ashes are one of the items you need, and they are the one that I mentioned that you can only get in one location in the game. And they are here in Abroka, but they're still a little complicated to get to. In the first area, Desenia, you want to work your way over to this room here. And it's very easy to miss if you aren't paying attention. There is a button under these shields that you got to press that will remove this wall and reveal this secret door to the crematorium. That is the only way to get into the crematorium, and then you'll randomly find Din's Ashes just among the various urns here. I say randomly, it will be in this gilded urn here, Din's Ashes, something else that Una Armina would want for the museum. Now we have the mute Screaming Maw here. You can see it next to its visually alike normal variants. Kind of a weird way to put it. You can find this in the Dunroot Burrow in the Bramble Halls section, which is pretty deep inside it. And it sounds inconvenient, but you will actually go here during the main quest. So if you just remember to grab it on your way through, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. The only other place you can get it is the Corpse Rot Prison Can, which I have no idea where that is, which is another reason why I ended up coming here. You will find this location during the main quest line. And there it is, once again, next to its normal Screaming Maws. I guess it might help to actually show where in the area it is. It's not too much of a walk-in once you get into the Bramble Halls section. This is actually another one that you can only get in one place in the entire DLC. This is the Pelvis of Pelagius. It is found here in the Howling Halls in the Congregation Chambers, kind of back towards the back area, right next to the door into the antechamber. It's going to be here behind this glass display. Now, you cannot get into this area unless you are at one of the final quests of the DLC's main story. You have to come here during the Symbols of Office quest, and then you'll be able to access this glass case and get the Pelvis of Pelagius. That goes for all of the fixed location items that you need to find as part of this quest. Now, as I said earlier, there are 7 other items that you need for the museum that are all just random spawns in random locations. They can be found randomly throughout containers anywhere you go in the DLC. I say anywhere, I'm not sure if they can show up in town containers, but they can definitely show up in dungeon containers. The items that can show up that you need to look for are the Dagger of Friendship, Houndstooth Key, the Mixing Bowl, Ring of Disrobing, Soul Tomato, and the Two-Headed Septum. Now that's only 6 of them. I wanted to leave this last one separately because it has an even higher, harder chance to get it, because it can only show up in amber limbs or stumps. This is the Sheogorath shaped amber. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Just loot everything that you see in dungeons if you want to get all these items. Eventually you will find them all. It just might take a long time. They have an incredibly low chance of spawning, like 1 or 2%, and you might find copies of them. So if you're looking for, say, the Friendship Dagger and you already have the Soul Tomato, oh, you just found another Soul Tomato. Guess you don't need that dagger, right? There is one thing you can do to try and make this a little easier. If you head to the Missing Pauldron here in Bliss, there is a chance that some of the items you need will be sold here. I haven't actually checked the merchant yet. This will be the first time.
Hello.
So we'll see
Always a
if
good
he
idea to
actually
protect
has
yourself. I can
something
help
we
with that.
need. We just got a little bit of bad luck. He doesn't have anything we need, but hey, you might still want to check this guy on your own playthrough just in case he has what you need. Maybe you'll be a little bit luckier than me, but it looks like I
Goodbye.
am going dungeon diving for all of these. One item in particular that you have to look for during this quest can actually turn out to be impossible to find, so I want to make note of it. It is the Sheogorath-shaped amber, and it is one of the random items that you find in containers all throughout the DLC. Except for this particular one, you can only find it in amber stumps and amber limbs that you find throughout the various cave dungeons. And these amber stumps and limbs, they only spawn their loot once when you first enter the area. No matter how much you wait after that, no matter how many times you return to the dungeon, they will never have different loot. And remember, these items have like a 1 or 2% chance spawn rate in the first place. So take me, for example. I have cleared out every cave and fort dungeon in this DLC except for one. Not Bone Chamber. And I still have not found this Sheogorath-shaped amber. The reason I saved this one for last, though, is you can actually do a little bit of save scumming and have a higher chance of finding the amber that you need in this dungeon. Before you even enter it, you want to pop a quick save. Because as soon as we enter, all the loot in this dungeon is set. And the amber stumps and limbs are going to be set forever. But if you walk just a little bit of a ways in, you can find a limb here. Oh, 2 amber. That's not what we need. You can drop down here. 2 amber. Not what we need. 3 amber. Not what we need. Oh, and 3 more amber. Not what we need. The point being, though, you have 4 of these containers right at the beginning of the dungeon that all have a chance to contain the Sheogorath-shaped amber. And if you don't find it, all you got to do is go ahead and load that quick save from before you even entered and try again. This is probably the best failsafe for getting this amber if you're like me and could not find it anywhere else in the DLC, which is extremely unlucky. I've been just unlucky in general on this file finding any of these items. But it is what it is. It all comes down to luck. You see there, they all did have different amounts of amber, but still no Sheogorath-shaped amber, so I'm probably going to be here for a little bit, reloading this save and looking for them. If you have already cleared out Not Bone Chamber here, and you can't respawn the loot of these limbs and this stump, another area I found was the Fetid Grove, which is somewhere, if I can find it. It's one of these caves. Fetid Grove, right here, yes. They aren't directly in front of the entrance as you enter, but there are quite a few amber limbs and stumps in this dungeon as well. Just remember, do a quick save before you enter it for the first time. Do a run through, check all of them out, and if you don't find it, reload the save and try again, as I am about to do with this dungeon. So this is where we need to sit down and talk about this quest. Since getting the 5th item, which was the Pelvis of Pelagius, I have spent 7 hours playing this game, this DLC, and I have explored every fort, camp, and cave in the entire DLC. Basically every dungeon that I could do here. And all I have come across for the random items are 2 two-headed coins, the Sheogorath shaped amber, which I almost completely missed out on, and 2 soul tomatoes. Which, one aside thing, I didn't realize it actually counts as a soul stone that you can use, or a soul gem. Kind of cool. But nonetheless, that is all I have gotten after 7 hours of running through all these dungeons and opening every container I could find. Now, granted, I got a little bit unlucky. I got not just 1, but 2 copies of an item. I could have had 4 different random items from that, but that still would not have been enough to finish the quest. Now, one thing you can do to have maybe a better or worse time than me, I ran through all of these dungeons with the console command T detect, and you can see I was turning off collision a good bit too, just to get through stuff easier. But T detect, all that does is just make it to where enemies don't even see you. And I had to do no fighting whatsoever. I don't expect you guys to use console commands. If you want to, I'm not going to shame you though. It's your game. Play it how you want. I'm just doing it for the guide. But that was 7 hours with no fighting involved at all. If you don't have that console command on, of course you will have to fight everything, and it'll probably take you actually closer to 10 hours total to go through every dungeon in this DLC. But you might have a higher chance at finding the items, because some of them can spawn on the bodies of dead enemies. I didn't think that was worth doing all the fighting, so I just used console commands. Either way though, this is a hell of a quest to finish. And the only way I think you can reliably get it done faster is either be extremely lucky, or similar to what we did for the Sheogorath shaped amber, do a little bit of save scumming. Pop a quick save before you enter a place, go in, and try and find it in the first few chests that you open. And then do that for every dungeon you go across. You might be able to get 1 new item in each dungeon you go to. Bada bing, bada boom. Only 7 dungeons. That's still a lot to ask for with all the save scumming that you'll have to do. That guy's going to be annoying if I stay there. Let me move away. It's going to be very annoying doing that anyways. If you don't want to do save scumming, you're going to be going through a lot of dungeons, and luckily, unlike the Sheogorath shaped amber, all the other containers will respawn and redo their loot after 72 hours of clearing the dungeon. So if you don't want to go through every dungeon in the DLC, you could do, say, Feign here, leave, wait 72 hours, and go back into Feign and check all the chests there. And just wash, rinse, and repeat that same dungeon. So either this quest in general is just absolute hell. It really encapsulates this DLC as a whole, and it makes you go mad and insane and wondering if you're ever gonna find these items. I obviously did not. So with all that in mind, I've told you guys everything I know about this quest and how to complete it. If you have any other tips in the comments, go ahead, share them with the world. That would probably help. As far as I know, I've gone over everything. So now, instead of dragging this video out anymore, I'm sure you guys would at least like to see how everything looks after you get everything in the museum. So with that command, I add the Houndstooth key to my inventory. And there's the Dagger of Friendship. There's the Mixing Bowl. And the final one that I am missing is the Ring of Disrobing. With that, I now have every item to turn into the museum here. So let's head back in.
Oh, how deliciously odd. I've never seen a blind watcher's eye before. It will have a place of honor in the museum. Wonderful. Looking at the tentacle, I'm not sure whether to be disgusted or terrified. Just the kind of thing I'm looking for. Well, if it doesn't look just like you, so lifelike. My patrons are going to absolutely adore this. That's amazing. The Pelvis of Pelagius III, an honoured madman if there ever was one. This is unusual. The ashes of a famous madman are perfect for my museum. 2 Tibers are always better than 1, I always say. We'll take good care of him here in the museum, don't you worry. Oh my, that is odd. I've never even heard of such a thing before. We'll find a nice place for it here in the museum. A bowl that you mix potions in. Well, it doesn't seem all that odd to me. Well, I can see you're trying, so I'll find somewhere to put it. What a perfect little oddity. Just strange enough that it makes you go, but not so strange as to become a miracle or an omen. Thank you. Well, isn't that just the oddest thing? A dagger that heals people. Who would make such a thing, and why? I absolutely adore it. Oh my, how wonderful! A ring that removes people's clothing. This will be one of my most popular exhibits, I'm sure. Oh, how cute. Look how it tries and tries to scream, but no sound comes out. Oh, this is perfect for my museum. Wonderful. Follow me and I'll show you around my little collection of oddities. Look closely and you'll see a tiny skull. These pygmies used to live in the Shivering Isles until they were all eaten by grummites, poor dears. Here's a real oddity for you, an arm of one of the gatekeepers. This one was killed by... oh, I forget now. A lovely specimen in any case. Up here is a little beauty. The Ring of Desiccation. Walk on water and breathe underwater at the same time. Odd, if you think about it for a minute. Here you see the blind watcher's eye, a most unusual specimen collected at great peril by some intrepid adventurer. Here, in this case, is a disgustingly deformed swamp tentacle. Such a freak of nature has never been seen before, and hopefully not since either. This right here is one of my favourites. A lump of amber in the shape of your head, my lord. A very popular item too, if I may be so bold. Over here is the Pelvis of Pelagius, the greatest emperor that Tamriel has ever seen, as well as being completely mad. Here we have the mortal remains of a fellow named Din, who, as I understand, was driven mad and killed himself. A truly demented act. This is a lovely little oddity. A 2-headed septim. Take your time, there's no rush. Here's something truly odd. A soul tomato. A tomato that can act like a soul gem. No one has yet been able to explain it. This one is perhaps more unusual than truly odd, but some people enjoy it. Truth to be told, I only display it as a favour to the donor. A lovely little oddity. A key made from a hound's tooth. And no one even knows what it opens. Imagine that. Shall we move on? Here's a new addition to the museum, one of my favourites. A dagger that heals whomever it cuts. Isn't that deliciously odd? The Ring of Disrobing. Removes your clothes if you put it on. Now don't you go trying it. I have enough oddities on display already. I love this one. It's a Screaming Maw that can't scream. Isn't that just the oddest thing you've ever seen? I hope you've enjoyed the tour. Feel free to stay and browse for as long as you like.
And with that, we have the full tour with every item in it and all the heartbreak and insanity to go along with this quest. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end this segment of the video, go ahead and say my outro. Thank you all for watching. This has been a painful one to record, and I regret trying to do it legit for 7 hours, honestly. But if it helps you guys out with it, then it's probably worth it, right? But anyways, next week, we're going to go after another terrible quest in this DLC that I would have wished to have some help with when I did it the first time. The Taxonomy of Obsession. It's going to be next week. But before we end off the episode today, I'm going to go through and I'm actually going to steal all of these. And don't worry, she won't actually call the guards on you for doing so. You don't have to steal them back. You can't turn them into her a second time. I'm just going to do it to show off one interesting thing that you can have here in the tour area. She will actually give you a tour with nothing on display if you take everything. And really, it's just her fumbling around the entire area, wondering where everything is. It's still amusing, nonetheless. That's for a completely separate quest. You do actually have to steal the Ring of Desiccation from this museum for another quest. Unrelated, though. But yeah, we're going to end off the commentary here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time for more Oblivion. And enjoy the tour.
Welcome to the Museum of Oddities. Let me know if you'd like a tour of our exhibits. Would you like a tour of the museum? Wonderful. Follow me and I'll show you around my little collection of oddities. There used to be a pygmy skull here. I was sure of it. My very first oddity. I couldn't have imagined that, could I? Oh, well, let's move on. You haven't seen a huge severed arm with an axe for a hand anywhere, have you? I seem to have misplaced mine. Oh, well. Here's the ring of... Well, now, where did it go? Things have a way of disappearing around here that's enough to drive a person insane. Here is... Well, I think there used to be something very odd here, but it seems to be missing now. Let's move on. You know, I always walk over here thinking there's another exhibit, but there never is. Oh, silly me. This case is waiting for something especially odd. If you run across anything odd, be sure to bring it by, and it might end up on display here. I could have sworn that I used to keep something very odd on this shelf. Oh well, let's move on. Yes, I've been meaning to put something here, but it seems I haven't gotten around to it. Although I distinctly remember preparing an exhibit. Well, this case seems to be empty. Strange. I'm sure that yesterday... Oh, my memory just isn't what it used to be. Let's see what else we can find. Were you in here last week? Wasn't there an exhibit in this case, then? Oh, well, I must just be going senile. Oh. As you can see, I have plenty of space here for new oddities, so think of me when you run across anything odd. I think something's missing from this shelf. Or it could be just my old brain playing tricks on me again. Oh well, let's continue the tour, shall we? Oh, that's strange. I thought there was something else here. Oh, well, no matter. Just losing my mind or something. Right this way. This case here I'm saving for something special. Wouldn't you like to be the one to find something odd enough to go on display here? Oh yes, I've already shown you this shelf, haven't I? My poor old brain just isn't what it used to be. I hope you've enjoyed the tour. Feel free to stay and browse for as long as you like.